the fighting has to stop. This fighting attitude, being pugnacious, it doesn't work. The question is, do you have the courage to come from love?
Okay, hey everyone, we're here, Shay, Conrad, in your amazing, incredible land where you've created all of these beautiful buildings. And you were telling me before we started filming, and I just stopped you and said, like, wait, because I was asking you whether you were a carpenter, and you were telling me about the fact that you trained as a boat builder, hence why you've got these amazing carpentry skills. So tell us a bit about, first of all, about you and your background and how you got all of this incredible skills to build these amazing structures.
Well, as a young man, my main thing actually was to go sailing. I did actually start off in the Merchant Navy for a little while, but that wasn't the way to go. It was sailing. And with sailing comes boats, and with boats come the construction of them. And when I married a very beautiful Swedish woman a lot of years ago, I moved to Sweden, and my mother-in-law found me a job as an apprentice boat builder in a boat yard on the island of Uckerö, which is just outside Gothenburg. And there I started to learn the skills of building boats.
Mm-hmm.
And it was absolutely wonderful. I was telling you early on that the first boat I helped to build was a folk boat, which is a 26-foot sailing boat with, I think, the most classic lines of a sailing vessel. Clinker built, and this one was built in wood. They do make a glass fiber version these days as well. But back then, we built this beautiful folk boat, and from there I worked on another boat yard and did some wonderful jobs there, which were really exciting. I remember she must have been at least 45, 50 feet long, having to change out the very bottom plank, which is known as the garboard strake of this huge sailboat, and learning how to make this huge piece of wood fit into this huge great hole that I'd created by taking out the rotten one and putting in another one. So my skills grew exponentially from all sorts of different ways of boat building, boat repairing, etc., etc.
Yeah, this is your mystery locations. We're not going to reveal where you are. You've bought some woodland here.
Yeah.
So how long ago did you buy it, and what was, I think you had a caravan to start off with, didn't you? And
I
so
did.
tell us a bit about the story and what inspired you to buy this land, and how did it all come about, and then we'll get on to the challenges that you may have had with the authorities.
Okay. At the time when I bought this piece of land, I was actually living in Sweden.
Mm.
And I had a wonderful place there. I had a small cabin, 2-room cabin, sitting area, kitchen, dining area, and a barn, and 6 hectares of land, which was very generous. I was at the end of a dirt road. It was pretty much perfect. But something said, come back to the past. I just love this part of the world. And at the same time, while still living in Sweden, I thought, well, I'll buy myself just a couple of acres of land. At least I've got somewhere to go home to, or to my second home it would have been. So I bought this piece of property. It's just about a hectare, little over 2 acres. And that was back in 2000 and I can't quite remember, 13 I think. No, it was before that. It must have been 2009, 2010 I think.
Yeah. So how much was it? About 20 grand or something?
It was 20 grand.
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
Well, 19
Interesting.
to be 19.5 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how much has all of this construction cost you?
Oh, very little indeed.
You got really resourceful, right?
I got really resourceful. Well, I lived in Charleston, South Carolina for a while, just for a side story. And I became known as the dumpster diving king of Charleston. Right. Friends would ask me, I need a new pair of shoes, and somehow I'd find them.
Okay.
So anyway, that's going on from there. So basically, when I came back here and then decided to move here, I started collecting from all the local dumpsters,
Right.
and especially from a big hotel job down the road, where they rebuilt a perfectly good hotel, but of course this is the way of the world these days, completely rebuilt. But the stuff they threw away was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And every week I was down there filling up my trailer with wood and all sorts of useful materials.
Mm.
So nearly everything that's built here is pretty much 85 to 90% recycled.
Yeah.
The only things I bought for this cabin, for instance, are the tin roof, the screws, the windows and stuff. They're all recycled. They've come from skips. So yeah, that's
Wow.
how I build stuff around here.
And it's beautifully warm in here, and you've got this heater in the. It's not quite in the centre, but it's not against a wall, and it just strikes me. It's just like so obvious, because usually you see them tucked away in the corner, but actually it's really nice. The fact it's really heating this space beautifully.
It does, yeah, absolutely. Yes, I sort of took that from a Danish concept, which I learned about years and years ago, that they will very often put their main heating stove right in the middle of the house.
Yeah. Tell us about the challenges you've had from the authorities, because obviously we know from our activities, our minimal activities at Crestbrook Dale, the authorities really don't like it when you start to do things like this on your own land, even though this is perfectly within your lawful rights. Okay.
Mm-hmm. It was interesting. It was an interesting journey, and I'm actually very grateful to COVID, because that started me on the journey of natural law,
Right.
as many people refer to common law. And I won't deny the very first time that the enforcement officer, I call him my friend Trevor, came along, I was shaking with fear. I actually have a recording, and you can hear my voice shaking.
Wow.
With fear, because I hadn't quite got it that I was absolutely had a right to be here. So it's from there that I then recognized that, first of all, the system is, as some might see, rather ridiculous. And having looked at common law, and my effort was, because I first of all looked at legislation. And according to that lovely lady who died recently, somewhere de Buissier?
Oh, Anna de Buissier.
Anna de Buissier. She points out there's over 9 million pieces of legislation.
Yeah.
And I believe there's this ridiculous idea that if you don't know the law, that's your responsibility.
Yeah.
There is a saying that goes with that. And I thought, it can't be so. So I searched for simplicity.
Mm.
And from legislation, I went to common law and also the Constitution. From there, I went, hang on, I'm sure it can be simpler still. And finally came to natural law. And those three beautiful words, which basically, in my heart, encompasses everything that is law. Do no harm.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, this is the thing about legislation. All of this statute is essentially, they've inverted that simplicity into this complexity, which makes you feel that you've got to get a solicitor, you've got to get a barrister. And of course, as soon as you engage with the system, all of those people have sworn an oath to the bar, and then you're in the system and you're having to navigate, and basically you've given away your authority and your power, because you've said, I'm mute and I can't speak for myself, and therefore I need someone else to speak for me, because essentially you're a dead entity. And then the system takes over, and it's very clever. It's a very clever contract, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
But, you know, if it was just that simple, all of these lawyers and barristers would completely, you know, it would just be down actually to the way it was in the olden days, which is, if there was a dispute between two people, you'd have a trial by jury, and you'd have 12 of your fellow man and woman, well, independent of the situation, who would listen to both sides and make a common sense decision, and boom, that's your law in originally.
I think that expression too is incredibly important, is common sense.
Yes.
It's built in. This is the most beautiful thing. I think Sir Edward Coke in 15th, 16th century, he said something to the effect that the finger of God has written on the hearts of every man and woman
Yes.
the law that we know,
Yes. Yeah.
doing no harm. Yeah.
And essentially, the idea of common law and trial by jury is that the people decide the kind of society they want to live in.
Yes.
So if the society decides that, I don't know, murder is okay, then murder becomes okay. But most people would actually intrinsically, as you say, actually, do you know, that's not okay. And we don't want to live in a society where people feel that it's okay for them just to murder people. So it's like everything finds its own balance through trial by jury, and it's just so simple, you know. So anyway, going back to Trevor and your enforcement officer. So you were telling me about love letters and how you deal with everything through love, because of course we're part of the love movement. Yes. Liberation, opportunity, vitality, empowerment, but you're taking it one step further into just writing from the heart and taking the fight out of everything.
So this is what I'd do if I received a letter, which they very often, because I don't have a postbox here, they would literally pin it to my gate.
Yes.
And I'd come home from somewhere and see this little white envelope. Because
they don't have any right to come on your land, because that would be trespass, right?
That would be trespass.
Implied rights of access have been revoked.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So when I did get one of these letters, I would write back. But my first enforcement officer was a young woman whose name I can't remember at the moment, but she got my first love letter. And of course, when I told my friends that I'd written a love letter to her, I got a little bit of jip for that. But the whole idea is, in my heart, is to write to everybody that is thinking that they're doing their job as enforcing the law, or however you want to see it, was to write back to them, not with all the correct phrases and the correct wording and this is my right and this is my right, but to write to them as a human being, to write to them from my heart and saying, I'm not doing any harm here. I love my way of life. I would describe my way of life in glowing words and how happy I was to live the way I do. I really do. I love it. And I would express this in my letters to the council members or the enforcement officers. And this is what I've done. And I've said, I write to my enforcement officers when I do, not very often, as love letters.
Yes, there's a sense of it just being very freeing here, just like this nestling in this. It's not really like a wood, is it? It's more like land with trees on, which sounds like the same thing, but it hasn't got that dense feel of a forest. Well, although it is winter.
It is actually a planted woodland.
Okay.
So a lot of the trees are in rows, which is a little disconcerting sometimes. But yes, if you notice that there are tendency for rows of trees, and there's a mixture. There's both ash and rowan and field maple, and I've got a few willow actually, which making me wonder if there is actually some underground water on the left-hand side of the ground. So yeah, there's a variety of trees. And
it's on a slope, and it's looking out over the valley there.
Yes.
Beautiful.
It is rather nice, yes. In the summertime, the valley is completely blocked off. Personally, I'm not into street lights and things, so unfortunately now in the wintertime I do have to put up with the street lights across the way, but maybe when they've run out of electricity, if they ever do, because the machines apparently are going to take all the electricity, aren't they?
The AI bots.
The AI bots, that's what I was trying to think of, yeah.
Conrad, you wrote a soliloquy, is that the right word? Soliloquy?
I don't know. Well,
monologue?
It
would be nice for you to read, which I felt was, you read it to me earlier, which it's a philosophy on life, I think.
It was the beginning. I wanted to write out, I was thinking, I used to give short talks when I first discovered natural law, and I wanted to talk to people about that. And in 21 and 22, I think I gave just half a dozen or so talks in Cornwall and here in Devon. But I've also noticed how my philosophy has changed and hopefully grown.
Yeah.
So I wrote this piece as hopefully the basis of maybe a talk, which I might give at some time. I named it Beyond the System. What if I told you that this is not about survival, not anymore? Life on this planet is about what? The most common concept is that we are here to grow, especially in consciousness. And this seems to be a good starting point. Some say that we are an experiment. Either way, it suggests that something has started the whole process. For many, this is a godlike being, possibly an advanced being or creature, who knows? Nevertheless, we are here in these bodies of ours. It seems that we are still evoking the survival gene, something which has held us in good stead for many a generation. But now that we have driven our predators into what is left of jungle and forest, the fear of death has been lessened by innovation, medication, and knowledge. And yet the button of the survival gene continues to be pressed due to our fear of death. Many who are beginning to realize this is but a staging post of a journey as yet unexplored. Or some are actually remembering past journeys, past lives, in an effort to bring us back to the truth of who and what we really are. But while we are here, what joy it is to dance and love everything that has been placed before us. And by doing so, our consciousness grows. Mind you, it does appear we require the duality to test our growing consciousness. Yes, I am aware there is a philosophy that there is no duality and everything just is. Fair enough. But with consciousness, I believe it is necessary to take in both arguments. Rather like love or true love or unconditional love, which has no judgment. And it is from this place that we can move towards our real home. This realm is one for our bodies to be in, harboring the spirit, the soul of who we really are, and a chance to remember that our bodies are not us. Only our souls hold this consciousness of who and what we really are. I do love this story that is told that God, feeling unsure of himself, placed a part of himself into the human being, at the same time forgetting who and what he is, so that he could remember and thus be sure of himself. With these ideas in mind, I put to you, why engage in a societal system that is inhumane, that has nothing to do with consciousness, that is lifeless, and certainly does not promote joy, liveliness, the appreciation of beauty, and many other aspects of life here? For surely it is these elements which move us into our understanding of love, where we can practice unconditional love. To engage with the system is, in my opinion, a distraction. All the time and energy used to fight its ridiculousness is wasted, while the time could be used to dance, to practice, find joy, marvel at the beauty which surrounds us, to move towards our own consciousness. Mind you, I'm glad to hear of many who are aware when their vibration gets lower, brought on by news stories and the time taken to write letters or attend the courts. And they find ways to heighten it. I believe this is more important than spending time fighting. For my part, I do not believe myself to be part of their system. And should they come a-knocking, I will simply tell that I do not wish to be a part of it. Oh, admittedly, the system will have many counter-arguments. And this is where we need to recognize two factors. One, that words and language have been completely messed with and debauched. And secondly, words can be spells. So how do we use these spells? I believe that while speaking or even writing a letter, one comes from all the love one can muster. That is why, when referring to the few letters I have written to the council, I call them love letters. Lovingly standing in one's truth and sovereignty will create confusion in their minds. For them, it's a fight. You're wrong, you're bad, you must be punished, and punishment has to be threatening to this body, one way or another. The fighting has to stop. This fighting attitude, being pugnacious, it doesn't work. The question is, do you have the courage to come from love? It's not easy, as the fear is often there in the background, however much one thinks one is fearless. For many, coming from this place of love might feel to be too much of a risk. What triggers that? The need to survive? The survival of the body, yes, but does it threaten one's consciousness or one's soul? At the same time, the place we are in now, the body houses the soul. So what to do? Of course, numbers is one, if many take this attitude I suggest. This has been a dilemma since the beginning of time, it seems, to bring in a new way of thinking or way of being that allows love. Most blossoming religions have had this problem. In fact, any duality creates a fight of some kind. Do we go the non-duality route? Everything just is. Do we learn to accept that death of the body is not the end of the journey? Or is this disrespecting the gift of the body? Do we fight? Or do we learn and practice the true power of love? Love is our destiny, after all. Thank you.